Hi, my name is Phyliss from Taunton High School, and my argument would be, is civil disobedience healthy for a democratic society? This is my first argument for the pro. The concept of civil disobedience is often blanketed with violence, protest, and disrespect. It is viewed as a threat to fair democratic societies because of past events. While the idea is drowned with negativity and viewed as a threat to democracy, it epitomizes the opposite. It upholds the critical fundamentals of a democratic society: accountability and freedom of speech/protest. Contention 1, freedom of speech/protest. The First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States establishes that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, the freedom of speech, of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. These are the 5 protected freedoms and the freedoms the institution of the United States is built on. Individuals are guaranteed these rights and are meant to utilize them where they deem fit. While the conversation of civil disobedience is clouded with negativity, the existence of the action itself is essential in a fair democratic society. Civil disobedience is crucial because it is a driving factor that allows citizens to exercise their rights to free speech and speak up against an unfair and unjust government. It means people are aware of their rights, understand the importance of equality and freedom, and utilize those well-established rights to bring change. A healthy democratic society is one where citizens are not afraid to advocate for themselves or change. They exercise their rights well and uphold the institution their government is based on to prevent potential tyranny and injustice from their government. Contention 2, accountability. John Rawls describes civil disobedience as a public, nonviolent, and conscientious breach of law undertaken with the aim of bringing about a change in laws or government policies. It is not uncommon for governments to institute laws that do not satiate or assure all their people. However, it is uncommon and unfair for governments to pass or uphold legislation and codes that harm individuals for others or their own. People cannot be forced to adhere to legislation that specifically and significantly harms them. Through civil disobedience, citizens can voice their disagreement with the legislature and hold their government accountable to prevent tyranny and institutional injustice. Various examples can be examined throughout history, with Henry David Thoreau himself, father of civil disobedience, partaking in one to voice his disgust with slavery in 2020's George Floyd protest. The protests were acts of civil disobedience and intolerance for the discriminatory behaviors of law enforcement, along with the injustice victims of police brutality receive. Many view the protest as a shift in the established peace and nature of democracy, but as Howard Zinn highlights, protest beyond the law is not a departure from democracy, it is essential to it. Protesting brings about change and allows citizens of societies and nations to express themselves and hold their government accountable. If anything, civil obedience is the problem. It lacks accountability and forces citizens to remain quiet. Millions suffer due to civil obedience. Thus, civil disobedience is beneficial and healthy for a fair and accountable democracy. Today, civil disobedience is regarded as a morally unjustified act that only threatens the rule of law and democracy. However, it is far from the truth and purpose. Civil disobedience represents the rule of law and democracy and symbolizes the beauty and flexibility of democracy as it granted citizens rights and freedoms. While it is meaningful to appreciate one's freedoms, it does not exempt the government and society from criticism. Criticism is healthy, especially in an environment where the inputs of citizens matter. It also prevents government oppression, allowing for a more harmonious democratic society filled with honesty and justice. While not everyone will agree with every legislature or action taken by a government, the opportunity to express such dismay is a fundamental aspect of a democratic society. Now I'll move on to my con argument. One of the main arguments supporting civil disobedience is that it is constitutionally granted and thus valid to occur. Americans have freedom of speech and protest, and while it is crucial for them to utilize their granted rights, it does not negate abusing said rights for personal gain and outrightly disrespecting one's institutions. While the idea of civil disobedience is impactful and meaningful in hindsight, civil disobedience is far from civil. It is meant to be a nonviolent and well-intentioned for change, yet it often turns violent and alludes to anarchy, the opposite of a healthy democratic society. Furthermore, civil disobedience foments disrespect and undermining of the rule of law while imposing views and morals of the opposition on others. These factors pose a danger to a healthy democratic society, and through my detailed contentions, I'll amplify why. Contention 1, anarchy. Civil disobedience was established for citizens to bring about change to legislatures they deemed unfair and unjust. While this reasoning for civil disobedience is healthy and fair in theory, It does not often prevail as so in real life. In reality, civil disobedience leads to, quote, the violation of a political obligation and undermines the rule of law, and leads to the destabilization of society as it only sets an example for others to disobey the rule of law and government institution. It expresses disrespect for the law and authority. This poses back to citizens abusing their rights to engage in civil disobedience for their benefit. If anyone can engage in civil disobedience just because they disagree with a particular legislature, stability in the nation crumbles and in turn will result in the fall of the democratic society. Some acts of civil disobedience also lead to violence, which would only cause harm to the society. Not all acts of civil disobedience can unfold like Rosa Parks' bus boycott or Gandhi's various marches in South Africa and India. While citizens need to express their opinions and hold their governments accountable for unjust and unfair legislatures, it should not call for people to completely disregard the law and its authority. Stability is fundamental to a healthy democratic society, and allowing civil disobedience to occur will diminish that stability for every citizen, regardless of whether they stood for civil disobedience or not. Contention 2, imposition. Another aspect of civil disobedience that requires consideration is how it affects minority voices that do not agree with the ideas of disobeyers. Civil disobedience, especially those that occur on a grand scale, attempt to shape the morality of the nation in order to bring change, a contradiction to democracy. Every citizen has freedom of speech, yet many are silenced because of the civil disobedience morality questioning. Those with unpopular opinions are allowed to express their opinions, just like those with popular opinions. Acts of civil disobedience try to shape and impose specific moral views on all citizens, and those that do not agree are forced to remain silent. Freedom of expression is essential in a free, fair, and healthy democratic society. All citizens are allowed to share their opinions and should not fear sharing just because they fall within the minority. While civil disobedience is viewed as a pathway for minority voices to bring about change that harms them, they are also harmed when it comes from the majority. They are muted by the loud voices of the majority around them, which in reality leaders from establishing justice and equality, a supposedly important aspect of conducting civil disobedience. Overall, civil disobedience is a complex aspect of a democratic society because of questions of justification attributed to it. While civil disobedience is a granted right, it is crucial to analyze and understand the consequences that come with it. Individuals can exercise their given rights. However, it is also important for all citizens to consider others and the potential outcomes. Nobody should ever be silenced regarding their opinions, whether it is highly favored or not. Although not all disobeyers intend for violence and instability to occur due to their acts of civil disobedience, reality does not set these outcomes from occurring. Significant and impactful harm can result from civil disobedience, and it is crucial to understand such results before engaging in it. Civil disobedience in hindsight poses a much more significant threat to democratic society because of the extreme possible outcomes, making it far from healthy for a democratic society. Thank you.